At first glance, Germany's stick grenade looked strangely old, more like a carpenter's tool than a modern battlefield weapon from the machine age. But that wooden handle was not decoration. It came from brutal lessons learned in trenches, ruined towns, bunkers, and frozen mud. The idea was simple: give infantry more reach, let them strike first, and move before the enemy could recover or return fire. That practical logic turned one odd grenade into one of the most recognized symbols of German infantry combat during the Second World War. Allied grenades were compact, heavy, and easy to carry in pockets, pouches, or webbing during fast movement under fire. Function mattered more than looks. The German weapon was longer, less tidy, and instantly recognizable because of its wooden shaft and metal explosive head. This was not accidental. Yet the shape was not chosen for drama. It reflected battlefield thinking inherited from the First World War. Doctrine shaped the weapon. In trench combat, a few extra meters could decide whether an assault survived, stalled, or died before reaching cover. Field experience drove the design. The stick grenade's biggest advantage was range. The handle worked like a lever, adding momentum, direction, and throwing control. Combat rewarded simple advantages. A soldier could send it farther into trenches, windows, barricades, shell holes, or guarded defensive positions while staying slightly safer. That distance mattered because every step between the thrower and the blast reduced danger from fragments, shock, and enemy gunfire. Assault troops needed flexible weapons in trenches, villages, forests, factory ruins, and close urban fighting, where distance vanished quickly. The logic was brutally practical. When clearing a room, dugout, bunker entrance, or machine gun nest, accurate placement often mattered more than pure explosive power. The Stielhandgranate was mainly an offensive grenade, built around blast pressure rather than heavy fragmentation across a wide area. Battlefield design was unforgiving. Its casing was thin, so it did not create the dense fragment cloud common in many defensive grenades. Function mattered more than looks. Instead, much of its effect came from shock and pressure, helping attackers move forward soon after the explosion. This was not accidental. That difference was important because offensive and defensive grenades solved very different battlefield problems for soldiers using them. Doctrine shaped the weapon. A defensive grenade could throw fragments across a wider area, which helped soldiers who were protected by cover. Field experience drove the design, but for attacking troops advancing immediately after throwing, too many fragments could threaten the men using the weapon. Combat rewarded simple advantages. Germany's blast-focused design lowered that risk and supported close assault, movement, and clearing enemy positions at short range. War exposed every weakness. The roots of the design reached back to the mud, wire, shell holes, and cramped trenches of the First World War. Early versions worked well enough in that cramped, dirty environment, and troops became familiar with the concept. The logic was brutally practical. After the war, the idea remained popular. When Germany rearmed, engineers improved it instead of replacing it completely. Small differences changed outcomes. By the Second World War, the stick grenade had become standard equipment for many German infantry units. Battlefield design was unforgiving. The handle also gave a practical grip advantage in bad weather, when small actions became difficult and mistakes became expensive. In rain, mud, snow, or freezing wind, a compact grenade could be awkward, especially with gloves on. This was not accidental. The wooden shaft was easier to grasp firmly, point naturally, and release with control under pressure and poor visibility. Doctrine shaped the weapon. Troops could also tuck stick grenades into belts, straps, packs, or boots for quick access during combat. Field experience drove the design. It was not elegant, but in chaos, easy grabbing could matter more than neat equipment layout. Combat rewarded simple advantages. The ignition system also made the weapon distinctive, using a pull cord inside the hollow wooden handle. War exposed every weakness. The soldier opened the bottom cap, pulled the cord, and a delay fuse began burning before detonation. That detail mattered in combat. It was simple, with few moving parts, which helped reliability in field conditions and rough handling. The logic was brutally practical, but compared with pulling a pin, it required more motions, and under fire, every motion cost time. Small differences changed outcomes. German engineers knew blast was not enough in every situation. So, they created a fragmentation sleeve. Battlefield design was unforgiving. This serrated steel sleeve could fit around the grenade head and break into fragments when it exploded. Function mattered more than looks. With the sleeve attached, the same basic weapon behaved more like a defensive fragmentation grenade in harsh combat. This was not accidental. Another unusual feature was the ability to combine several explosive heads into one larger charge. Doctrine shaped the weapon. Field experience drove the design. Soldiers sometimes formed a bundle charge, called a Ladung, around a central grenade for stronger demolition effect. Field experience drove the design. This created a stronger blast for bunkers, barricades, machine gun nests, and some vulnerable vehicle parts. Combat rewarded simple advantages. It was not a proper anti-tank weapon, but it gave infantry options when heavier weapons were absent. War exposed every weakness. For all its strengths, the stick grenade had serious weaknesses that should not be ignored. That detail mattered in combat. The long handle made it bulky, harder to pack, and less efficient than smaller Allied grenades. The logic was brutally practical. A soldier could carry fewer of them in the same amount of space during an assault. Small differences changed outcomes. The wooden handle could suffer from moisture, hard use, or long exposure to bad weather. Battlefield design was unforgiving. Function mattered more than looks, and, because the standard version relied mainly on blast, it was often weaker in open ground. Function mattered more than looks. Fragment. Heavy grenades like the Mills bomb or American Mk2 usually had more open terrain effect. This was not accidental. So Germany used stick grenades because they fit doctrine, not because they looked frightening. Doctrine shaped the weapon. Field experience drove the design. The handle gave range and control, while the blast head supported quick attacks and close assaults. Field experience drove the design. The grip helped soldiers use it in mud, cold, and confusion, where clean theory usually collapses. Combat rewarded simple advantages. It could be adapted with fragmentation sleeves or bundled charges when more destructive force was needed. War exposed every weakness. It had flaws, and it was not better than every grenade. Battlefield tools rarely win beauty contests. That detail mattered in combat. Born from First World War lessons and refined for the next war, it became unforgettable. The logic was brutally practical. That is why the Stielhandgranate remains one of the most distinctive weapons of the Second World War. Small differences changed outcomes. Thanks for watching. If this history interested you, consider subscribing, and thank you again for watching. Battlefield design was unforgiving.